How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. Are we starting now?
Yeah, that's the beginning of this, and I'll kind of give you a brief. This part will probably be cut out a little bit, but
okay.
Kind of what I do right here is we just kind of start talking, and if the beginning isn't the greatest, we kind of find a
way
place
to go from
cut
there.
in and fade in during the conversation at a part where it starts to get a little more natural.
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I know, at least for me, the beginning of this, it was really hard to find out how to start naturally,
the rhythm
just
and
talking
stuff.
to people on the mic. And
I think it's easier too for your guest, right? Like because sometimes they'll be like, they're doing their intro. Okay, what do I say after that? You know?
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm so used to being on those things. So now it's like, oh, wow, okay, I'm okay with that. That makes my life easier.
You're used to being the interviewer. I mean, especially with doing Nerd Central, hosting that, and then
honestly
playing host for a few other things. What was it? It was Who's Next on the X, whenever you did that.
That was the one that I produced, but I have done a ton of different hosting, interviewing type of stuff, especially when I was operations director for KZLX. Yeah. I just, at first, because that's how I got into student media, actually, was originally because I had Lauren Liberty, old producer of Gen 2. She was here for a while, great person. She desperately needed Sonic. And I guess I was the only one to get that, even though I don't have a car.
My mind went to Sonic the Hedgehog for a second. I was like, she needed somebody to play Sonic, but Sonic the restaurant makes sense.
She desperately needed a Sonic the Hedgehog for that sounds like a Gen 2 thing. Let's be real here.
It does.
But she desperately needed Sonic, so I was able to get it. And then that was my first time coming upstairs in the Wells and being like, whoa, like what is this stuff? Because originally I came to Northwest as a public relations major because I got in some scholarships coming into Northwest, and they were like, hey, we want you. And I was like, I mean, hey, less money at school is fine with me. And I didn't even get a tour here, which is crazy to think about now because I was a tour guide for, I think, 2 years total and stuff, and I just never got an actual real tour here. It's kind of nice, but once I saw the upstairs of Wells and I saw like the facilities we had, the TV studio, and the people, I was like, this is really cool. Actually, this is really, really cool. Then from that point on, I learned about the show called Nerd Central that was going on at the time, and I literally remember I was walking out of Wells from a class, and I see the old producer of Nerd Central.
Who would that have been?
Her name is Paige Jennings.
The name sounds really familiar.
Actually right before our time. And she was walking out of Wells. She clearly looked like she had like edited for like hours or something like that. Like she was not having it. You could tell. And I still was like, why not? So I just like mosey on over to her. I was like, hey, just want to say, my name is Tyrell. I was just wondering, when do you guys shoot? Do you think maybe I could come in, pop a visit, stuff like that? And she was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. But she was clearly more like I said that a lot more enthusiastically. It was more of a, just show up. If you do, we'll see what's up. And I was like, okay.
Those Wells Hall sunrises get you, man.
Yeah.
Those late nights of editing.
And you could tell, man, that Wells Hall sunrise got her. And at that time, I was like, okay, that's fine. And actually, when I went to that shoot, it was Porter's pilot episode at that time. Okay. And but just watching them work and do stuff, I was like, that is so cool. So the host at that time walked up to me and said, hey, we've met before. And I was like, I don't quite remember when we met, but hi. But she was really sweet, and she was like, maybe you should try and audition to be the host for this. It's like, okay, I think I could do that. At that time, I had never been on camera or really done anything like that. In fact, I hadn't done any media stuff at that point. But it just seemed like something I could do. And then when I actually got that position, that kind of kick-started my media journey now. And now that's what I do. And that's like super weird to think about that, like that was the gateway into it. I know for like someone like you, it's like you were doing media stuff in high school and it kind of led up into that. And sometimes I get a little like, I don't know, a little nervous sometimes. I'm like, man, I never had those experiences or I never did those things. So coming in was like a little tougher, but now I feel a little bit better about things. It really just depends on the day though. Sometimes it really does.
Did you ever have that
I know I have a similar but different story.
Mm-hmm.
I only did my broadcasting stuff my senior year of high school. I did it with Dante DeStefano.
Yes.
We did ESPN broadcast together.
And you called a game with Shelby Singleton.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, she told me about that.
So
Wait, that's some lore right there.
Yes,
that's some lore from
lore.
producer John right there.
Wells is Kearney North, pretty much, I think. And then Gunnar Trammell. I did stuff with him in high school too. But I came up here, and originally I was a different major. I was a athletic training major, and
I didn't know that.
I did it for about a semester and a half. Damn near failed out of school, and I knew I needed to switch. My dad does what Will does here, but at UMKC. So
I did not know that either.
But he was also a student up here. So Patty was his boss. John Coffee was his boss, and he had classes with Will.
Crazy.
That is
crazy.
So
So being a media major up here and not having, I had a little bit of experience, but not having a lot of experience, it's kind of scary because I have those expectations to meet because my dad was up here at Wells. He did a lot of stuff. He produced a lot of stuff on the radio side as opposed to like the TV side, but he still did stuff with the TV. So it's like having those like worries and stuff is, I know where you're coming from.
That's, I didn't know that about
I didn't
him
either.
at
That's
all.
some lore drop
Actually,
right there.
I didn't. And I'm assuming that Will knows that you're his son, right? And
I talked to him about it 2 weeks ago, and he was just sitting up there in the lobby with me. I was like, hey, did you have classes with my dad? His name was Jameson, but I didn't realize he went by Jamie in college. It's like, the last name sounds really familiar.
So you got lore. He gave you dad lore for your own dad?
A little bit, yeah. But it's like as soon as I said, well, he might have gone by Jamie, and then I saw it click, and like, whoa, I had no idea. And his mind was blown.
That is actually crazy.
That's crazy, man.
I didn't know anything about that with you.
So my dad came up here for Wells, and then actually with me and Dante, we commentated for our high school's football and basketball games. We did a lot of the football games together, and it was on ESPN3. So like I'm technically a national broadcaster in high school.
By technicality, right?
But we were able to take a couple of awards. Or we were able to take a couple of our clips from the Kearney versus DeSoto game and submit them to a competition in LA for a national competition. And we were able to take home a couple of awards for that. So we went out to LA. It was me. I think Dante went with us and my buddy Eric Stokes and then a couple other kids from Kearney and Liberty North. And we spent 4 or 5 days in the middle of a school week out in Los Angeles, California with minimal teacher supervision. Like it was one of the best trips of my life outside of the college disc golf national championships because I was out in LA with a couple of my best friends in high school just dicking around. I'm pretty sure our first night there, we got into an Irish pub as a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds.
That Irish pub was, that's the choices that Irish pub made. Let's just put it like that.
Maybe been a relative of mine. But
you know what? Get it? They let minors into a bar.
So we left a pretty nice tip for that waiter. And then the second night, we snuck out of our hotel and went to a Mexican food truck. And I'll be damned if that isn't the best Mexican food I've ever had. Just in the middle of a street on LA.
I mean, I believe that.
Yeah. And then that next morning we got up before the awards critique started, just to go get your stuff critiqued before they gave you the awards and stuff. And we got a bunch of these bird scooters and went to I don't remember what the name of it is, but you might have seen it just on TV or something. There's like this giant overpass, and there's just a bunch of restaurants underneath it, like underneath buildings and stuff. And it's like this giant restaurant hub of like authentic food from all over the world. We went to the very far side of it, almost ended up on the interstate, which wasn't fun. But we got breakfast at a place called Egg Sluts. And it was just a bunch of breakfast sandwiches. And I still think about that sandwich to this day. Best sandwich I've ever
This
had.
man's still thinking about Egg Sluts to this day,
I
y'all.
think the closest
to this day.
the closest one to us is in Vegas.
Dude, that sounds like an off-brand Hooters.
That literally does, but like egg specific,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
legitimately.
No, it was great. And so yeah, that's a little bit of the Kearney High School media lore.
Yeah.
Kearney High School media lore goes crazy
Yeah.
back. The opportunities they had are just insane.
Yeah, I didn't like you mentioned kind of like in my high school experience, I didn't necessarily have that. Mine
Mhm.
spawned more so from personally doing YouTube and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But did you ever have any inclination that you wanted to do like on camera stuff or any media stuff?
I think there was a point I remember I was coming into it's gonna be freshman year of high school, and at that time, I don't know what in me ticked. I was like, you know what? I want to be a YouTuber. I'm gonna do this. And then I took my mama's iPad at that time, this dinky old big old thing that could only film in like a very specific aspect ratio, and I was like, I'm gonna talk about stuff. And I remember made a video on fidget spinners. And yeah, that shows exactly what time this was. Yeah, acting like a little goofball kid, stuff like that. And I was like trying to edit stuff in iMovie, which is fine, except for when you're trying to edit it on that same iPad that like struggled to maintain like a clean 50% battery a good amount of the time.
Plugged into a wall outlet, you're just like a
Yeah.
little further hanging off your bed so you can like edit it.
I
and
am
stuff.
not even kidding. That was that, but it was on my mama's bed because it could not leave my mama's place. So everything was filmed in that room. And yeah, I was doing that, and I was like, you know what, this is cool. And then I had this thought. I was like, wait, if I upload these videos and they see this and I go into high school, am I doomed? Like, is this it for me? And I said, nope, unlist. And that's where they lay dormant to this day. But at that time, I think it was because so I wasn't allowed to like watch, consume a lot of media, things like that. My parents were very, very strict Christians. And I mean, they still are, but like a lot of things I had to be scanned through them, viewed through them before I could even experience those things. So a lot of times like people would be sneaking like rated R movies, things like that. For me, it was like, I just want to watch YouTube. You know, I want to watch Smosh because I can, and stuff like that. So that was what I would be doing and stuff like that. And over time, I was like, wow, a lot of these things are bringing me a lot of joy, and I am enjoying consuming media to the point that when I got into high school and then I was allowed to be like, oh, I can like choose a streaming site and I can just watch movies or watch shows and music. And like I now had a Spotify account that I could do that sort of stuff. I didn't realize how much media meant to me, because it felt like a sense of freedom in a way. Like when I was a kid, like the best days for me were, since I didn't have really any video games besides the ones I played with my friends and stuff like that. A lot of it was literally Saturday morning cartoons for me. We didn't have cable, so it's just like on some random channel and just whatever would show, you know? And sometimes it'd be I don't know what that station was on. They put on the exact same episode 3 weeks in a row of this Yu-Gi-Oh! Just 3 weeks in a row, the exact same episode over and over and over again. And I loved it. It was just like a freeing feeling. So the idea now I'm creating content that can hopefully, you know, help other people have that sense, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It is super cool.
Do you think that impacted like the Do you think that impacted the impact? Do you think it impacted the influence that media has kind of had on you, and the reason that maybe you were drawn to it?
I think so. Honestly, I think a lot of people at a certain age, when they start to get the things that kind of the morals that kind of make them who they are, right? I knew one of them for me was like, I want to help people. But I didn't know how I was supposed to do that. I knew that I liked being around people, that I could talk to people, but what am I supposed to necessarily do? And I think now that I am in media, I am able to figure that out, because in high school, like, I did nothing like it. I was a debater, actually. I did speech and debate, and I would act in different things and stuff like that, but like that was really it, honestly. And I thought I was going to go into politics for a long time. I remember someone from Drake University came to my school and was like, "Hey man, like, we've been hearing stuff about you." And I was like, "What?
Secret Service?"
Yeah, I was like, "How does
President Obama, are you listening to
exactly?" I'm also like, "How does that even work? How are you scouting, like, athletics? Like, how?"
He's like the Nick Fury for potential politicians.
That's
and stuff.
exactly how it felt in that moment. Let me tell you.
We're forming a team.
Yes, that's literally how it felt. I was like, whoa. And they're like, cool. And I was like, but they really wanted me to go into politics and do their political science division there. And that was exactly what I was going to do for a long time. But then just, I don't know, something about it just made me feel like, maybe that's not what it is. I think it was a lot of when I was in debate, right? Every single person there is just the most politically active person there. They all have their opinions, and they're also willing to say them. And then I think going to Boys State, which I did enjoy. I really enjoyed Boys State. It was cool, but I don't know if those people were the people that I wanted to be around for the rest of my life. And I think that kind of swayed me to this direction now. And now I think I'm able to experience or show different parts of me just without that side of it, I guess.
Yeah, I relate to that because I think I went to Boys State the year after you. I think we've talked about that
I think
previously.
so, yeah.
And that's where me and Gabe and Kelly met, because we were all in the same city at Boys State. But I was kind of going down the same route for a little bit. I wanted to go into politics. Everybody thought I was going to be a lawyer, and I can mark the exact moment I started becoming politically active was in 8th grade. I think it was early December, something like that. I sprained my ankle during basketball season, and I was kind of stuck, didn't have anything to do while it was cold out. So, as most people know, if you go down the YouTube rabbit hole enough, you start getting into political content.
Right.
And I got into political content for a little bit, and I became very politically active because
that is exactly how I got there as well.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else to do, so I got really active, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a politician. I want to go into public service at some point still, but I don't want to make it a career like I did previously because politics aside, I don't necessarily agree with that kind of career.
You know what? I kind of agree as well.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a hypocrite in that fashion. Like, I want to go into my career in media. Then I want to go into education and kind of teach what I did within media and kind of the industry. And then if I eventually have time at the end, I want to go into public service. But no, I 100% understand what you mean, because being around those people, I look back on how I was in high school and how I was in 8th grade through the beginning of high school. And I'm like, being overly consumed by politics is not the greatest thing in the world. It does not make you feel that great. And
exactly. And in those moments, right, like, I'm sure you can look back and be like, of course, like, now we would not be chill with those kind of people. But in those moments, it felt like, oh, this is like how I'm supposed to be almost.
You're like, oh, I'm the smartest person in the room right now because I know this stuff. And it's like, well, then you just kind of look into it and you start getting depressed because, your candidate didn't win. And it's like, well, now I'm just depressed. And I didn't like the way it controlled my life. And like you said, at Boys State, I was going to do the legislative classes that we had to go to. And I decided to do the campaigning, and they talked about the media side of things, campaign ads. And I'm glad I did, but I would agree. there were some people there, and I experienced this because the year that I went, they were filming the Girl State documentary in Missouri. And I actually had a friend who was featured in it. She interviewed to be one of the main people. She got to the final rounds of interviews. Well, she didn't end up being the main person, but she became friends with one of the, I think it was 5 girls that ended up being the main girls through it all. And I remember watching through that, and one of the main targets they hit on it was through Apple Music. And Boys State and Girls State, the year that I went, they were at the exact same time. It was the first year they held them on the same week, on the same campus, because they moved to Lindenwood, so it was a lot bigger. And I remember watching it, and it's like, politics consumes these girls' lives. And just, I think the difference that I found, especially from that documentary, was they're like, well, the boys just seem like they're having a lot more fun. And it's like, well, we also... a lot of us don't take it as seriously. A lot of us are like, we're going to make a law that says you can't take more than 3 steps at a time or something like that.
And those are things that people would have to follow. Yes.
I remember I was filming a campaign ad, and you know how the sidewalks are like the roads? You have to, like, road laws? I stepped off into the grass for one thing, and I was a governor candidate at the point. I took second in the primaries for my party. Wild story. I'll tell it in a second, but like I was sitting there campaigning or like doing a campaign ad, and one of the cops walks by and he's like, well, wouldn't it be odd if a governor candidate got a ticket for all this? And I was like, yeah. Like,
because you're like, actually though, please don't do that, because this is something, and you know those boys would just hop on that because they know it's the goofiest thing, and they love that.
It was so fun, but actually the kid who beat me in the primary, so I actually was in the Girl State documentary, because since it was at the same time, they did some Boy State stuff. And whenever we had the primaries, I was on stage, and I came out, I had a suit jacket, I had like the Iron Man like the big aviators and stuff. And I remember
you had the Edith glasses on.
Looking back, I looked like Nixon, so it didn't give off the best view. But I went. I did, but mine was more so because I quoted Tony Stark in Iron Man 2, where he says, "I have successfully privatized world peace."
Oh, that's what you're referencing. And I did that,
and then I looked like Nixon, and then I realized that is the clip of me in the Girl State documentary on Apple Music. Won either an Academy Award or an Emmy. It won one of the two, and I'm like, great, I am in either an Emmy or Academy Award winning documentary doing Richard Nixon
doing literally Nixon. Thinking like, okay, the Academy has watched me do that now, and that's just gonna exist forever.
Yeah, it's but the kid who beat me in the primaries, going back to that, so Boy State's wild. Anybody that hasn't gotten to experience it listening to this, it is literally, I describe it, it is 600 high school boys or girls, depending if you go to Boys or Girls State, running a state government for a week, all the way from the local level, all the way up to the state level, making laws, making constitutional changes, and it's insane. Every
single bit of it, and those boys, they're selected, and they want to do it. Like everyone there is like, we're gonna make this happen.
My buddy went the next year. I keep skipping the dude won the primary, but I'll get back to it because it kind of goes into this because
I can't wait if that guy's just like, and he won. He's like, okay, cool. And that's the whole story.
No, like people get corrupt. I'm not gonna lie. I had a buddy from my high school, really good friend of mine, go the year after I went.
Yeah,
and I definitely took like $50,000 in Boy State bucks with me back home. And I didn't realize till after they change them every year, but just slightly, like the shades of colors change slightly.
Yes.
So I kept one of each bill just so I had it for memories, and then gave my buddy like $50,000 worth of Boy State bucks, and I said, start the mafia and start bribing candidates.
You out there and
he started the mafia. He's like, dude, I got a bunch of kids, like I got a bunch of guys on my side, and they started paying off political candidates at Boy State.
And that is so crazy, right? Because because the rules of previous Boy States, like laws and things like that go in there, will affect future things. So it's like over time, so you pigeonholed the
I was the secret donor for the mob at the 2023 Boy State. But no, the dude, it kind of plays into that because talking about like the corruption, the guy who beat me in the primaries, so the city he went to or was in at Boy State, he, like their city had stolen, I think $1 million worth of government, like state tax money. at the beginning of it.
That is so much money.
So he decides to run for governor, and like there's a bunch of stuff with it, and he denies it, and he's like, I wasn't involved. There's some other stuff. He got in trouble for electioneering. He got in trouble for illegal campaigning because you can't post anything online or election material until the specific day they tell you can. Mm-hmm. And he had been campaigning on Instagram the beginning of the week and the week before and stuff.
Yep, that's illegal.
So he started doing that, got in trouble for a lot of that stuff, and It ended up being, I was in Carver. What county was I in? I can't remember what county, but I know it was, I was in Pershing, and then the other city was Carver. And we were in a county
What was
together.
that county? I don't remember the name of it.
I can't remember, but we won second in like county of the week and everything. But we ended up going into it, and I ended up taking second. My buddy from Carver took third. His name's Ethan Fairclough. He's at West Point right now. I'm pretty sure he's in the Army Academy.
My brother made it out. Okay.
And then Aaron, who is at Drury right now. It was us three, became really good friends that week, and Ethan was on the Senate, I think, and he was running. He took third. And we realized at the end of the day, we were like, dang, we split our county. If we would have gotten our county together, we would have won because we had by far the largest county. But whatever. Right. So this kid wins, ends up losing in the election because they started the case against him. He's like, you know what? He won the primary. We're going to start prosecuting him for illegal electioneering, illegal or like election fraud and stuff like that.
That doesn't show like how much dedication.
It was. It's so cool. And he ends up, so again, going back to the stolen funds, we all got to the point where we were like, he didn't do it. Like it was just coincident. It was the same city. So you can buy commercials and make commercials there. Final day, they play the commercials. They played the commercial, and he literally just goes, I did it. I stole the money, and takes a pile of money and starts throwing it. Jim went wild, dude. And oh my gosh, the gym went crazy. I remember I also put an ad in it because we had
that's crazy
symbols that are, the flags that you would hold and stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the schools lost their flag, so one dude brought a crocheted Perry the Platypus and put it on their flagpole. We worship that thing. Like
that becomes the idol.
It literally it was Perry and then Gary, who was the president of the American Legion, who sponsors it. Gary literally, there was a guest speaker on stage. I feel so bad, but there's a guest speaker on stage. Talking. Gary from the balcony stands up to go to the bathroom. Everybody stands up and starts applauding Gary. God.
See, and that's too because all of those guest speakers are like politicians of the Missouri area or like mayors and things like that. So that means that someone's just clapping.
Yep. No, we got to watch the Republican primary for Senate that year because it was an election year.
Oh my goodness.
I went.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Everybody came except Eric Schmidt and Eric Greitens, which we were all pretty upset about. But there was some interesting things. Like, it was cool to get to see it, but
I love how you guys are treating it like it's a concert. Like, unfortunately, some people didn't pop out to the function.
No, literally, one of the politicians on stage called them out, and one of the students called them out whenever we were asking questions, and everybody was like, yeah. Like,
I mean, hey, if you're going to show up to anything, you know.
Yeah, but no, Boys State was cool. That was complete sidetrack with that, but like, going back to like the politics thing, like, yeah, all in all, that's to say, I realized I didn't necessarily want to be around that the rest of my life, and just kind of it kind of consumes your life. And there are some things, and I'm sure like media has consumed my life in a way of like a positive impact because it's given me a way to tell stories, and I love editing videos, and I love shooting videos and telling stories. But that's a positive to where like I felt like going into politics like that, and I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah.
It just brought a negative light to that kind of thing.
It definitely always did. I think I remember a specific moment. My leanings at that time were not where my family was at all. So constantly, it wouldn't even be me saying anything per se, but there was always that slight feeling of like, wow, like my morals or my values or whatever it may be do not align with people that I do genuinely care about. And I don't, And I think the hardest part was the idea that, wow, these things that I'm living up to, yeah, I can believe them and I can have them. But when they're my life, now people are like, you know what? I don't always want to be around that, you know? And I think that's just was kind of challenging to think about, I guess, especially because it wasn't even just people that were political, being like that. Like, I was a part of a lot of religious organizations growing up too. Everything from the youth group to, helping out the church to even when I came up through the college and stuff like that, I was doing a lot of that stuff. And a lot of those people, especially when you want to, ask questions or figure out things or just genuinely want to know, can become a little standoffish. And that's kind of it's like realizing that kind of person, like, I am someone who I want to question, I want to understand, and I might not always agree, but that's kind of what it is. And realizing that politics, unfortunately, where they are now, it's just not the place for that. That alone was like I don't know if I can continue to do this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you end up finding your place? And I'm guessing the answer is yes. And I'd love you to explain a little more, like where you found your place in media and kind of where that is taking you from there.
Yeah. I think what it was I found a joy of creating, I guess, since I was in public relations and talking to people that have been doing PR for different companies and organizations. You talk to them and it almost feels like they're putting up a PR front to like show you how good it is. And it's like knowing the behind the scenes of it and knowing it's like, wow, like the term fake is used all the time, but the literal definition of like, this has to be fake in order for people to like you, to get to you where you are and stuff like that. I started realizing that some of the classes and things like that were literally just teaching me how to appeal to a massive audience, or just a wide group of people. And for those kind of jobs, they're necessary, they're important, and that's fine. But for me, I just knew that just did not feel like it. And I still remember the very first pack that I made. So like the 3-minute just thing for whatever show we're on in KWT. I did a pack called the Jukebox Meme Machine. And it was a pack dedicated.
What a name. What a name.
I know. I spent a good amount of time on it.
You workshopped that. You definitely workshopped
yes.
that.
Oh, you know I did. And it was literally about different songs that are considered memes and their like significance to it and stuff like that. And that was kind of cool because I loved music, but I had no one to discuss or talk about it with or anything like that because I was being so fake for so long that like nobody knew that I was even into movies, TV shows, stuff like that. Like they just didn't know. And when I started feeling more like myself and making content that reflected that, it was like, oh wow, I think I can kind of do this, honestly. And I think to double down on that too, the people here at Wells are just genuinely good people. And finding a sense of community with people, I think there's something special about being within a group of people that all collectively kind of want the same end goal. I think that's why athletics in high school are so important, because to understand what it's like to work with a team to do something great, that's incredible. So the fact that I still have those opportunities now is kind of cool.
Did you play sports in high school?
I unfortunately did not. Simply due to a lack of athleticism. But
you got that experience with speech and debate. I mean, being
yes.
on a team and stuff like that.
And I was a manager for a lot of the teams just because a lot of my friends were athletes and stuff like that. And they were just like, hey, if you want to lead this and do this, I was like, okay. But I think those things are just so important for people to learn. And some people might not have the opportunity because they don't have the same interest or same goals. So the fact that we can still have that now, I think is what swayed me to kind of find the person that I am now and kind of the position I am. Yeah.
Yeah. How'd you transition from on air to finding your role as a producer in a award-winning producer and internationally award-winning producer at this point now.
It was quite literally, since I love music, I just do. I thought that radio would just be the route to kind of go to figure it out. But then it kind of hit me, that a lot of the times the reason why I like music was, because I like listening to it. Okay, we have all ears, this is a podcast, but I liked the discussions around it. I liked the YouTube videos breaking down the music, the communities that would build there, the concerts that were there. I liked the everything else that came with the music, and a lot of that I could experience more on the video side. And I do work for KXCV, KRNW right now as an on-air announcer, and that's kind of how that was my first, that and Nerd Central were my first gets into media. But I remember sitting in radio in KZLX, which is our student radio station here, and just being like, you know what? Is this cool? Yes. But unfortunately, there's just not a lot of interaction that I get to do right now and stuff. But I do know that if I go to the TV side of things, I can interact with more people. I'll work as a team. It's not as individualized. And there's nothing wrong with individualized work, I'm just not that kind of person. And so when I was doing stuff at TV and enjoying that a lot more, that's when I knew that I kind of wanted to do that. As for producing, I don't think I ever thought that I could be a producer. I was seeing a lot of the stuff that people were doing at that time. And oh my goodness, sometimes I forget how old I am, like doing this. But there are just so many people that were just doing exceptional things. And I was like, I don't even know how to turn on the studio, I don't know how to set up this camera, and I don't know what a tripod is, but it was finally realizing that if I accept the fact that I don't know how to do this and let people show me how to do it, then maybe I could. And then since I knew all the way back when I was a child that I wanted to help people and do that, that's when producing started to kind of become the thing that I was interested in. And that's why I did do my show, Who's Next on the X, which was like that, literally what we're doing right now, but with radio people, because I was like, you know what, I still want to give back to the radio station. I still want to do those things. But over time, I just knew that I wanted to do more. Which led into Now I guess.
Yeah, how'd that idea come about for Now You Know? Because I know, I think I vaguely remember talking to y'all about it, because whenever you and Avery decided you were going to co-produce that show, I mean, it was a little different from a lot of the other stuff, because most of the other shows were very production heavy, loose, or like studio productions and stuff like that. They were very news based and stuff. And I know Loosely Related was really the only show that wasn't like that we had at the time.
Thing. Yeah. So it was definitely so like for people who don't know, like KNWT, right? We have the variety of shows, whether that be like news, sports, video games, anything like that. But I think the thing that happened was, because I think it's kind of crazy thing about, I did not know Avery at all. Like at all.
That's crazy to think about.
I know it is. It was literally, she was in radio and I needed people to help with Who's Next on the X, and her head just kind of like perked up like and I was like, I saw that. I want to remember that for later. And then I don't even know what I was doing. I was running down the hallway, and she was just standing there, I think, trying to check out equipment. And we both did hey, you're so-and-so, right? Yeah. I was like, you want to talk later? Sure. And that's how we started like working on stuff. But it was just, I saw that she was motivated and excited to do stuff. And I was like, I feel like this could work. So talking to her, I was like, what kind of show, if we made a show together, if we did, what were you thinking about? And she's like, I don't know. So we brainstormed for a bit, and then I started thinking about it, that some of my favorite content as a kid, since again, I didn't have a whole lot of stuff, I watched a lot of PBS, like PBS Kids and really like educational formatted shows and stuff like that. And there were shows like Word Girl, like Fetch of Rough Man, like these like really niche shows that no one else was really watching at the time, but they worked because they were both educational and family friendly. And I started about that. I was like, okay. And then Avery brought up the idea that there are so many like random YouTube channels out there that will just be like, this is the history of like zip ties, you know, and you'll see them and be like, I'm just kind of interested in that. I'm okay with that. We started thinking about like Crash Course or Today I Found Out. And it's like, wow, that stuff can really work. So what if we did something that was both informative as well as do something that could be family friendly and watched by everybody? And then we looked at each other, we're like, are we going to be able to pull this off? Do we know what we're doing? And trust me, that pilot, we did not. Oh my goodness, that
hidden
pilot.
on the server somewhere.
It is hidden on the server somewhere, and you know what? Maybe after this, it won't be.
About to be deleted at some point.
It most definitely is. It most definitely is. Because an idea like that was just so like, that's cool. We haven't had anything like that. And I remember going up to Will and being like, hey, do you think this is a good idea? And he's like, we have never tried something like that before. I don't know. And that alone, if Will doesn't know something, I don't know, man. I do not know how to get through that. But we still did it. And I think having, like, I give a lot of props to Avery, but really Avery just being there. And I think the best part about it was, as a producer, like, we tell our producers and stuff like that, that they're going to care about their show infinitely more than everybody else, but having somebody else that cares about the show just as much helped tremendously. And I used a lot of those skills that I actually learned from PR, from Boys State, from these places, to know how to lead and guide people to get to the point that we made that. And now it's won awards and stuff like that, and it's kind of crazy to think about, but now we're here. Wow. I fully did not realize all of those
Give you
things.
A chance to really appreciate that right now. Yeah.
I think in the media world, it's just really challenging to slow down sometimes and like realize all that's happening when it's like constantly something else got to film, something else you have to do, especially for a show like now, you know, so many different parts. It was like one day's this, edit. Now this, edit. It was a lot. It was a lot, but it kind of shows like, you know, hard work, sometimes it does pay off. Like, it can, and I'm still happy we did it, but now it's over, I guess.
Yeah. It was one of those shows that I feel like set a new level for KNWT, and I'm going to give you your flowers here a little bit. I mean, it was definitely one of the best shows that I've seen in a while. And I mean,
thank you.
I haven't been a part of KNWT as long as you, but it felt like it was a new step outside of the comfort zone that a lot of people found themselves in, of like news show or interview show or just something along those lines. It felt like the first transition we had into professional YouTube content, which is where a lot of the stuff is heading. And being on the promotion side and working on the exec board, it was really cool to see that progression of it. Because, I was about to say, I think I was there from the beginning, but like, being there from day one and seeing it until last semester, that was really cool to see. So.
Yeah, honestly, it was also the like people like you that were like supporting us through that whole thing. We're just kind of like oh, maybe this is okay. I know a lot of times I give off a like I'm having a good time, everything's cool. Man, I was so stressed out during those points. I think I remember a few months ago, like we were doing Now You Know, and at this point, like the awards started to come in and we started to see those things. And I remember being, you know, pretty happy about it. I was like, wow, like the stuff that I was seeing people be successful, now I am that person. And I went home and I looked in the mirror and I started noticing that I had gray hair. Like gray hairs started to be, and it was like, wow, I am 22. And I am just stressed out of my mind. And that was alarming, I guess, to kind of realize. And I think from that point on, I kind of made the conscious decision that I wanted to try harder to take care of myself. Because although it was, now we're about to get a little deeper. As Now You Know was going on, as award season was going on, a lot of things started to kind of happen. I lost my grandfather, and I was not able to actually, be with my family or see them or anything like that, and that was kind of a lot to realize, I guess. I remember going to his funeral and then like immediately like the next day coming in here and editing and feeling exactly the same, and that was kind of a lot. There's also a point where I had to stop. I just stopped talking to my family. They thought I was a ghost and I wouldn't text back and anything like that. And I kind of look back on those moments like, why did I do those things? But it was because I felt like I had to be so locked in that I didn't have time for those things or for my girlfriend at the time and stuff like that. It was a lot. And it was cool to win awards and such. Like, I made a short film that won a lot of stuff. The show was winning a lot of stuff, but a lot of those nights it was like, wow, I wasn't living, I wasn't, and no one really knows that, and I don't know if I want to continue to live like that. So this semester especially, I've made a lot of changes now in my lifestyle and things like that, where I'm not here until 3 a.m. on the regular, and I'm seeking out those things. And I think in media, it's so challenging to do that because there's such a need for more and more and to get better and to be successful. And just speaking from now that I am successful, I wish that I would have taken more time, and maybe I'd rather taken more time in those moments than be in the position that I am now. It's just a crazy thing to think about, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those situations that, and I hate the term, like, I know how you feel with that, and it's like, I will not know how you feel in that situation. But
I know you know how it feels when it comes to mental, like the mental, like, bogging of the constantness. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember my freshman year whenever I lost my cousin, who was 16 at the time. She passed away in a car accident and stuff. And I remember the feeling of like, okay, the numbness that kind of came with it, and just the, okay, well, I'm still working on this stuff. I felt bad about missing class for a week and like going down to see my family and stuff like that. And it was, I think that was a big turn for me with a lot of that stuff. And then I know last semester, it wasn't necessarily anything that happened. It was more so just a, like, I'm not really enjoying my time doing media anymore and following through on stuff like that. So from that point of view, I think it's one of those things I think a lot of people can relate. Everybody has their own individual circumstances with that, but I feel like it's important to tell those stories, and I appreciate you talking about that. I know that's not always something people want to talk about, so I appreciate you feeling vulnerable enough to talk about it, because I think it's important for people, especially in creative fields, to hear that you're not always going to feel the greatest and stuff like that, and it's like, that's okay. Take the time, and, if you got to readjust courses and stuff, because, like, we haven't mentioned this, like, you took an award-winning show, and then you are producing something else this semester that it seems like you're pretty happy with so far doing creative services.
I kind of love it. Being in charge of all the promos, commercials, anything like that has kind of allowed a lot of freedom. In fact, I will make this note. I remember there was one day I came into equipment checkout, and you had mentioned that like this podcast specifically and how like excited you were to make new content and to do stuff, and like taking that break was really necessary. And it was literally after that I was like, you know what? I think I want to do something more, because you had mentioned, like you just saying, that you were kind of losing the motivation or the feeling of excitement to make stuff and to do stuff. And I was starting to feel that way. I'm not going to lie. To the point that it was scary. The idea, like, this thing that I'm supposed to love and this thing that I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life. Also, money, like those things, like.
That's definitely one of the non-benefits of this career.
Right, unfortunately. And it was like, that feeling of maybe if I don't enjoy this anymore, then what is the point? And that was really scary. So it was hearing you be like, you know what? I just had to take a second to realize what I want to do, what I feel like doing. And now, like, I think talking to you that day, you were like the most excited I'd seen you in like months, It's like, maybe that's, if he's able to do it, then maybe I can try and do something new. And I have not regretted it. And I have not regretted it since. Yes.
Yeah. I appreciate hearing that because mine's kind of on the opposite route. Like seeing you enjoy that side of things and like watching you enjoy what you're making and kind of, I guess, taking that route outside of movies. And because I feel like that's something everybody, like a lot of people come in here wanting to do. I mean, it's one of the most popular things, and like taking that step outside of maybe that's not what I want to do. And like, I don't want to go down that route as everybody. That helped me see a lot of that. Like I had done broadcast my entire time here. And I think that's part of the thing that I was like, is this really what I'm going to do? I've set myself up to do it. This is what I've spent all my time doing.
Because I remember you being like, I'm making movies.
Yeah.
I'm a beeline straight, for Hollywood. That's the goal, right?
It's one of those routes. You feel like you're wasting your time, and then you're kind of like, okay, I can readjust right here. I can kind of reroute kind of where I want to go from that point. So it goes both ways, because I know seeing you enjoy, and obviously I didn't know the struggles you were going through with that doing now, but it's like seeing you take that route outside of what other people had done inspired me a little bit to be like, okay, I can go kind of a different route. I can kind of do different things like that.
I think, and I appreciate that. I do. I think it was definitely, I kind of forget sometimes that, the best thing that a leader could have is just simply look like they want to be there, and that's something that isn't really taught in leadership, because it's like, shoot, if you're there, bro, I would assume that you would want to, but if anybody's worked a fast food job or something like that, know that them leaders sometimes don't ever want to do what they're doing. But that's why, like, a lot of times when talking about like producing stuff like that, I give a lot of props to the crew and stuff like that, because without having a good crew, good community and such, good things just can't always be the case. And in moments when, despite them being difficult, despite them being challenging, knowing that I could talk to my crew or help them with something or do something like that, that really pulled me through. And although, should I have been taking care of other stuff? Sure. But I don't think I would have been able to take care of anything if it wasn't for them. Yeah. I really do.
It's one of those lessons also I think everybody needs to learn at some point. And hopefully it's never as extreme as some of those examples, but it's like, I think it's one thing everybody should learn at some point of like, this is my limit. I have to start working back from here and find that comfortable middle ground.
Yes. So. And I think that is something that, I think that's something that I'm glad that a lot of people are able to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look at some of the younger people coming in, and I get a little like, I remember what it was like to feel like, oh, I'm a failure because this didn't come out the way I wanted to and stuff like that. And I totally relate with it. But at the same time, a lot of times my advice to them per se is like, hey, you know, there's still plenty of time to do what you want to do. You can get to that point. You know, right now, we don't have to stress about it. We really don't. And I think like someone like you who's like, Jason, you, man, it feels like there was a point where like almost every single month it was something new that you're like, I want to try this and do this and do this and do this, to figuring out like where you are now shows that like, okay, like, and who knows, maybe in the next few months it could be something else, but it's about finding the thing that is working for you right now. I think works. Yeah. I think that's okay. It's to not figure everything out.
Yeah. I think I kind of came to that point with, who was it that spoke in Practicum one day? I think it was it TJ over at LTN that was talking to it? I think it was TJ McGinnis that talked to us, talking about, I'd always struggled with the idea that whatever career I find or whatever I find and stuff like that, I need to stick with that. Yeah. And kind of scared me because I was like, well, I really don't know what I want to do right now. And I've done broadcast for a little bit, and I spent all my time building up a resume of like, I've directed the football games here. I've worked for the Cubs. I've done March Madness. I've done a lot of different things, and kind of getting to that point where it's like, I think that's part of what brought me to that area of like, holy crap. I was like, did I just waste all this time? And now I'm so far behind where everybody else was. And then hearing him talk about like, I've had, I think he said like 12 different jobs throughout his time. And I'm like, that makes me feel so much better. Yes. And he talked about bouncing around between like starting out, I think he said he started out with the Royals or something like that, and then went somewhere in LA, worked for Big Ten Network, and then went to the movie industry, and then went somewhere else. And it's like, it was really refreshing hearing about it's okay, especially in media. It's kind of normal for people to jump around to those different positions. It felt really good.
That felt, hearing him talk about that was, for me too, it was just like oh, okay. Like, it's not if I don't get something out the gate, that's game, you know? Whenever Clint came in, I am forgetting what.
Last name?
Yes, last name.
Brummett, I'm pretty sure.
Brummett, yeah. And him coming in and talking to KNWT about like, hey, like, I didn't really have a job at one point. I know for a lot of people it's like, holy cow, that's scary. And to be fair, it is, but it was also the feeling of like, well, he is doing okay right now. So although he struggled, he could get back to where it was kind of a nice like, all right, you know, maybe that's okay. Maybe that is okay. Even though that talk was still scary, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You alive?
Yeah, I want to switch it up a little bit because I know you talked about your love for music.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that you didn't really get to explore that until you said high school. Where did your interest in music? Because I know you've got a vast knowledge. You just went to Chromacopia. You got to see Tyler. I know we've talked about hip hop and hip hop history and stuff like that. And I know you're a massive fan of the Beatles. So where did that love for music come from?
It literally happened. So like I mentioned, right, it was in high school, and getting a streaming service, I'm not even kidding, like opened up like so many things for me. I remember my dad was like, I think it's time now that you don't just have to listen to whatever we feel like. You go ahead and you do whatever. And I specifically remember in the 5th grade, we were doing like a get to know me thing, and you like there's like the person of the week, and you have to put down whatever. And for music, I put like none. I didn't have a favorite song at that time, and my teacher was like really confused at me, like, why do you have a favorite song? I was like, people have favorite songs? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to say to that? And opening up the ability to listen to stuff, I specifically remember being like, I am going to find the most popular artist right now, and I'm just going to listen to whatever I can. And at that time, it was Kanye West.
Oh, man. I may have to bleep that name at this point in time.
At this point. And I listened to that guy so much. And from that point on, you kind of expand to different artists and to different things and stuff. I then started to realize, I remember one of my friends was wearing a My Chemical Romance shirt. And I was like, oh, wait, now that I can listen to music, I can listen to that skeleton stuff or whatever, that's fine.
The death metal that was going to kill me as soon as I listened to it.
Exactly. Now I'm strong enough, I can. And getting into that, I was like, wow, like I really enjoy the content, the communities and stuff like that were coming out from it. It was just slowly but surely, and then going to YouTube and looking up and hearing people talk about, super passionate about this. Same way they talk about shows or movies and stuff. They're talking about music. And I remember there were a lot of days where I would just be literally sitting with headphones in the middle of nowhere and just like going to town on stuff. Because I'll definitely try not to make this too serious.
Go for it.
Okay. In high school, I spent a lot of time out on the streets and stuff because home was just rough and such. So a lot of times I was just, after school, it would just kind of be well, I guess we'll just wait till the bus comes the next day. So a lot of those days were spent literally walking around random places in Kansas City, listening to music. And I remember there was a record shop, Mills Record Shop in Kansas City. Awesome people. And I would go in there and they would just let me listen to whatever I felt like. So I would just put a record on, literal record, and do it and just listen to stuff. So that point on, it was a matter of going in there, typing in, what should I listen to? And I've listened from every genre to every single thing, just stacks on stacks on stacks on stacks of stuff to kind of get through stuff. And now that is where my array of music and understanding come from, because I just genuinely like it. And now that I'm at the point where I can make some money and I can go to these concerts, I can see these people that have, influenced kind of my upbringing and my understanding of life and things like that. I know Kendrick Lamar, like that man influenced a lot of the ways that I think about things now and work through stuff. And every single artist that I've ever listened to has like had a little bit of an impact on me. And I think that's a cool thing that I recognize now. It is pretty cool.
Yeah, Kendrick, side note on that, first rap artist.
Yes.
100 million plus listeners a month.
Yes, he's like number at this current point, like he's like 5th most listened to artist. Pure, that's crazy.
9th artist ever to reach that point. Only the 7th one right now to be at 100 million.
That's crazy.
That's and we've talked about this a little bit off, but like I always hate saying this whenever people that I've enjoyed or things that I've enjoyed blow up, because I feel like I have to justify like I'm not a bandwagon. I've been listening, but he's one of the artists that I got into hip hop, and I talked a little bit about this with Kale. I got into rap music whenever I started listening outside of just what my parents introduced me to, which was a lot of country. I listened to a lot of hip-hop. Eminem was the first one. I got into Hopsin, but J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar were two of the early ones that I listened to as well.
Kind of hit you, right?
And I remember it was either 5th or 6th grade is whenever, I think it was, trying to remember who my teacher was. It would have been 6th grade that I started really getting into hip hop, and I know those were the guys at the time. Then I remember in middle school whenever he dropped Damn, the album Damn, and we were listening to it on the basketball bus and stuff like that. Yeah. And I would throw out a speaker, and our coach, bless his heart, we were in It makes sense. We were in 8th grade, so but he was like, "Turn that off. That's cussing. That's too dirty and everything." Right. And I'm like, it almost made me want to listen to it more.
Right.
In a lot of those guys, but he's somebody that I've been listening to forever, and seeing him finally get this love of like, I don't know if you saw the videos, but like TikTok videos or YouTube videos of like my boomer parents or whatever reacting to him, and it's like, what even is this guy? You can't even understand.
What is a peekaboo? You know,
and it's like, we would have much rather had like AC/DC up there. Right. And I'm an AC/DC fan. I wore one in the last episode I did with Luke.
I am too.
And it's like, first of all, you want AC/DC how you remember them to perform. You don't want AC/DC right now to perform on stage.
Are you sure? Are you for certain? Because that's just what they think. I always thought it was so interesting because, like, you talk about how, you know, you were introduced to country music and then, like, slowly integrated into other stuff. For me, it's, like, reverse. Like, my family would listen to R&B and soul and hip-hop and stuff like that. So it was myself introducing myself to country artists and things like that. I just remember someone had mentioned Tyrell Childress, and I was like, that is so close to my name.
Yeah.
It's scary. I was like, that's literally a white version of me. I was like, that's what?
So then you look at him, and it was probably at the time he had the big beard and everything, too. Yes. It's like, that definitely is not me.
Yeah, that's different. I literally thought they were making a joke, like, about that. Like, this is a real guy. But like that, it was artists like him or Chris Stapleton or Zach Bryan, like, those are artists like I had to like get into. Like, no one showed me. I couldn't have told you a Dolly Parton song in high school. I just couldn't. It wasn't until but like things that like people are like, what? How do you not? That was my integration into music, was those fields of music that a lot of people were like, that's just kind of what they were into, you know? It's cool. But Kendrick, oh my God, the halftime show was so good.
It was. And I've been talking about it nonstop. And I know my girlfriend's probably tired of it at this point, but she's not, because she started sending me videos. Like, she had listened to him before, and since the halftime show, I've gotten her more and more and more.
Right.
And that's what she appreciates, also, like the social messaging that he had with it. And I think that's what drew her in more so, because like she's art education. She's like, diversity is really important to her, and like social advocacy and stuff is very important to her. And I think whenever she saw all the messaging and stuff, she sent me edits, and like we keep sending people videos or each other videos, and I'm like, let's go.
There's just like so much to get into with it. On top of that too, I feel like it's like the first halftime show where like I could listen to it just like as a song. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like just like
which
the way
they dropped on Spotify, by the way.
Yes, and it's probably my most listened to thing recently. That in this podcast, of course. But like I generally was like, this just is so cool. This idea that like, wow, this is like one of the most important things happening right now, and it's Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think it's awesome that, and especially he's one of the artists, I feel it's important to look at the context, because especially for a bunch of people that are newer to his music and stuff. I had one of my coworkers at the bar was like, yeah, I was just disappointed he didn't play his hits, because he has so many more like bigger hits than that. And the best way to explain it was somebody that commented, I think it was on Reddit. It was either Reddit or Twitter, that's like, okay, PSA, I think it was Twitter. Or it was Reddit. It was his the Kendrick Lamar subreddit. And it was like, to everybody who is a new Kendrick fan that bought Grand National tickets and everything. It's like, fair warning, he doesn't care what the popular songs are. He's like, he's probably not going to play any songs you've heard of at the Grand National tour. So start listening to his backlog, because he does not care.
Yeah, y'all lucky you got all the stars. You know, right? You're lucky at that point.
Yeah.
And I kind of respect it even more. And I think in this moment right now, people won't see that. Give it a few years, and they're going to look back and be like, that was incredible.
Yeah.
Right? I appreciate that so much.
Did GNX qualify for a Grammy this year? Is that why it wasn't up?
It did not, because it came out too late, because the Academy, they got their weird... It's in this and this. Yes, not just the year. So it will be for next Grammys, which is terrifying to think about
Yeah.
for whoever has to compete against that.
Yeah, that especially because I know part 2's rumored. It was supposedly leaked a while back on YouTube.
Yes.
And it's called, did you get to listen to it? It's called Faith is what the project was called.
I try my best not to listen to leaks because I get a little nervous. I mean, I come from a time of like I know on you talking to Kale about it, like that, like YouTube, hip hop, stuff like that, you know, and on top of that, were also just leaks on leaks on leaks of stuff. And I remember getting so excited for different leaks. And then when the actual thing come out, I'd be like, man, what was that? You know, like that. And so I try my best not to, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's there.
I hadn't listened to it yet. I was curious. I was curious if you did. Because I'm the same way. I want to appreciate that in the time. The only real leaks that I ever do is like with movies and stuff, like whenever the Fantastic Four trailer came out, I think it was Brazil Comic-Con, and then like the San Diego one, they had the Daredevil trailer.
Yes.
I tend to watch those because I wanna see it on the big screen. But
for me too, I'm like, first off, it already kind of annoys me that they don't just drop it, you know? Yeah. And that's why I'm like, you know what? I could wait like 3 days for nothing or even longer. Or I could just watch this now.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, talking about that stuff, we also talked about Invincible with
goodness.
TV that's out now, because I've never been an anime guy. I've wanted to get into it. It's just always been too daunting for me.
Yeah.
I feel like, would you consider this an anime?
I personally, for me, to play it the safest, I think that anime is animation, Japanese animation.
Yeah.
And not even necessarily the style. I think quite literally, if it is made in Japan, that's, I think, when it starts to qualify for things, because then you get like Avatar: The Last Airbender and stuff like that. It's like, is that an anime?
Yeah.
I'll say that I would not consider Invincible it. I would consider it just a comic book animated adaptation, you know? And I think that's fine. That being said, it's great, you know? And I think it set a new, you know what? I'll say that, and I'm also going to shout out The Boys as well. Set the standard for, like, we can branch out of this, like, MCU hole that we're in. And I like the MCU, right? But superhero content can be more. It can exist in a different realm as well, even if that is insane bloods and guts and stuff like that. But these stories work. And that's why I think I love Invincible so much.
Yeah, it makes it more relatable and I guess realistic, because also we're recording this. Episode 5 of season 3 comes out Thursday, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
So we're caught up on episode 4, but like I feel like it set that precedent to where I was talking to somebody at the bar the other night, and they were like, yeah, they hadn't seen The Boys yet.
Right.
And I was like, well, what I like to say with it is, like, my favorite example to give to people is with Soldier Boy, because I'm like, first of all, Jensen Ackles kills it.
Yes,
but I'm like, I love that example because it's a legitimate, realistic look at how Captain America would be, not this idealized, like, I'm this perfect person from the 1940s, from World War II. And it's like, no, Captain America was alive and went into the ice before Black people had full rights, before the Civil Rights Act, before the I'm trying to think of the actual name of it. Was it Stonewall with the LGBTQ rights and stuff like that. And it's like, he would be a very racist, homophobic, sexist person coming into the world. And it's not like, I hate that I have to clarify. I'm not saying what Soldier Boy says is right, but it's like, I like that it's a realistic look at what an actual super soldier like that would be.
Because it would be, right? It makes way more. I remember there's a scene in it where he's just walking down the street and he looks over and there's a dad carrying their child and things, and he's like, What is
I was about to say, didn't he call him a homophobic slur or something like that? Huey's like, what is that?
Yes, because he's just like, what? Yeah. But that is exactly how that would be.
Yeah,
and the show works because it sheds the light on how these characters would be in a more realistic setting.
Yeah, and it shows it's like superheroes wouldn't be that great. So don't think that, I want to live in the Marvel, no, you don't. Like,
No, you
superheroes
don't.
would be terrible to have in real life.
And it's like, because of course they would be, privatized and stuff like that. Because that's just how people and us work. So it's a bit of a reflection of our world as well as their world too. And it works. It works really well. Works better than the comics.
Yeah.
Which is, that alone is nice enough.
Yeah, the comics, like, I don't even consider it a spoiler alert. The fact that it lost me, because I don't read them. I normally listen to video essays over the comics. And it was like, Black Noir was a fail-safe clone of Homelander.
Yes.
In case Homelander went crazy, but both of them went crazy, and I'm like, you lost me.
It's just like I don't need to see that adapted. I don't.
That's such a cheap cop out. Like, he's a clone. It's like
No, I despise it, but I do think it does bring up a point that we don't, because I know sometimes the MCU gets a lot of flack from serious comic book fans, like, that is not how it happened in the comics and stuff like that. But I think The Boys shows that you can still take concepts from comics, and if they need to be changed and altered for this form, then do that.
Yeah.
While Invincible is where it barely strays at times from the comics, but that works for that.
Yeah.
But it depends on what works for different adaptations and stuff like that. The same way that, like, if you want to adapt a TV show to a movie, if you need to drastically change it or not change it at all, it's just whatever's best for that form.
Yeah.
And
I think it truly solidifies the point of, like, it's truly about the story. Like, as long as the story is good, people won't care as much about the changes, because it was Gen V. I specifically remember in Gen V, it was trying to remember the character's name, the one that goes between a boy and a girl. That can. Have you seen Gen V?
Yes, I have. I don't remember their name though.
But I remember with that, because the main complaint that a lot of people get is, like, they're forcing these characters into XYZ because of woke culture and stuff like that. And I'm like, I think The Boys did it very good with that character, because I think that's I don't even think that is the first time I remember watching a show, and it's like, man, I can actually feel what they're trying to portray of, like, something that somebody that, especially in today's society, like somebody that's non-binary or that it falls within that realm. It's like, I can actually empathize and, like, relate to this character's struggles right here, even though I don't personally. It's like they've told the story well enough to where it's like that's not the main thing. It's like their struggle and their story is the main thing that you're caring about. And it's like, this is so well done. I don't understand why people can't replicate this formula.
Right, or get upset by that. It shows like that I'm like, so this does work. So when we complain, you're all like, then I don't know. Because this is so sad. I recently watched Emilia Perez. Because I was like,
I am going to watch it at some point. I'm holding off watching it.
It is.
Is it that bad?
You want to talk about a show that lives up to what has been said? I kid you not. Was that one of the hardest watches I have ever had?
Oh
maybe. Period. Like, because you think that, okay, the same way that someone was hyping something up and it doesn't live up to that, people have been, like, punching down on it.
You're like, it can't be that bad. The cast is good. Like, Zoe Saldana.
And Zoe Saldana is in it.
Great actress.
And it does not deliver. There's so many things wrong with it, but the hardest part, the part that hurts me the most, is that I know it is going to win a good amount of stuff.
The fact that it is up there with movies like Return of the King and La La Land in nominations
is
for the Academy Awards.
Absurd.
Some of the only movies to have 13 plus nominations. And despite not even the actor drama, everything went wrong when the director went, I didn't do any research into Hispanic culture, because he didn't even say Hispanic. It was Mexican culture, because I don't need to know that. Like, I know enough.
What's the point? I got it covered.
Yeah.
I got it covered,
and he's a French dude. It's a French film. They're not even in the same continent as these people.
It's like, buddy, did you not want to try? And trust me, that movie shows he did not.
Oh, my gosh.
He did not. And on top of it, too, the music in it.
I've heard it's them talking vaguely to the beat of a poorly done soundtrack.
If you genuinely told me for a good amount of those songs that they came in with a music bed and then changed it later, I'd believe you. I would wholeheartedly believe you. Not only does the music sound like something you get off of like the Adobe stock, it also
I just keep thinking of the sex change operation.
Yes. See, and that's
man to woman.
Woman to man. And your hardest part too? That's one of the best ones, and it's bad. Didn't it
win Best Song at the Golden Globes? Oh my gosh.
It makes you kind of hit like, oh my goodness, this might win the Best Musical Oscar over like Wicked. Like and things like that. It's like, what? And I'm not saying that Wicked is amazing.
I've heard Wicked. I'm not a musical theater fan by any means. I've never seen it. Don't know the story. Mm-hmm. I've heard visually it's something you need to watch because it's really well done. Mm-hmm. I've just heard the story is lacking. Like there is no story.
Yes.
It's just because the first movie is 2.5 hours for part one. Mm-hmm. The play is 2 hours.
Yes.
The entire play
in its entirety. Yes, and I'm not gonna lie. It feels long. I've seen Wicked. Like I'm also pretty into musicals. Like I used to sneak into Starlight Theater and just be like standing there just like
heck yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of plays and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the humongous fan of the Wicked screenplay either. And that movie does feel like long, but I do think it does it justice, and it is better than Emilia Perez. So that's all I care about. Or if Emilia Perez wins like Best Score or something like that,
like Best Picture, I'm going to be so upset.
Because there are some good movies, man.
See, this is one of the only years I was talking with somebody, even just the Academy Awards in general this year. This is one of the first years where I can remember I'm like, I have heard of maybe a third of these movies.
Yeah,
there were a lot of movies on there. I'm like, I haven't even heard of it.
Yeah.
I think at least Best Picture, Dune Part 2, saw that. Great movie. Made the first one so much better. Mm-hmm. Conclave, I saw. No, I've heard of. I haven't seen it. And then The Substance, and then the Enforcer, or whatever that's called with... It has the guy who played Adrian Brody in The Pianist.
Yes.
He's the I think it's the Enforcer, or it's like the Aggressor or something, but he's the main actor. He's up for The Brutalist.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. He's up for Best Actor for that, which...
And that sounds cool. I do kind of, at some point, I keep telling myself that I'm going to watch all of them before the Oscars. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
I have a buddy who does that every year, which is crazy.
I did it for last year's one, and it's kind of rewarding. You know, it's kind of cool and I mean, it's not like, well, I mean, they're all films. Some of them are great, you know, some of them are just not. But I don't know. I feel like I saw a good amount of them. The movie that I'm kind of surprised did not get a Best Picture nom was Challengers.
Yeah. I didn't see it. I saw a review over it. Mm-hmm. I think I can kind of see why it may not have, but also it feels Oscar baity in a way, but...
I kind of agree with you on that. I think the hardest part, though, was seeing Emilia Perez. Yes.
Over Challengers.
Yeah, you know, and be like, okay. And even Wicked, I was kind of like, okay, you know, that's fine. I also think that a movie that unfortunately kind of came out at a weird time was Furiosa. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a movie that I think maybe just deserves a little bit more credit. And didn't seem to get that. Mm-hmm. But it's the Oscars. I don't really know if defending them is the best bet, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah. I was a little upset. What was the movie with Nick Cage? I'm blanking on it. He was like the serial killer.
Oh. Oh my goodness.
Longlegs. I'm surprised Longlegs didn't get anything, at least for cinematography, because it was gorgeous, and then the set design and stuff was really good.
I'm a little shocked about the cinematography one, because that is... What other movie looks better than that movie?
It was really well shot, especially the way they play with the aspect ratios to play like flashbacks. Did you see the movie?
Yes, I did. I definitely did.
With like the flashbacks, how they were all in 4:3 versus all the current was in, I think it was... what was the ratio it ended up being? And I think it was.
It's not 16 by 9. No, it's.
What's the I think it's like 23/8 or something like that.
I think that's what it normally.
Yeah,
is.
with the black bars on top and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's one I'm surprised didn't get it for that as well.
I'm just kind of surprised. It felt like it. There's a few movies like that. It's another movie too that I think just kind of unfortunately got pushed out of the way a little bit, which is a bummer. But I guess in a way it's more like, hey, if you see a movie that's in your movie theater that you want to go see it now before not necessarily forget, but like appreciate it while it's there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it is.
Yeah. What does future hold for Tyrell?
The future for me, well, I have. Ooh, do I want to make that an? I won't make that.
You don't have to.
I'll make that announcement.
I was about to say you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to.
Well, the future for me. So I'm currently the producer of creative services. So working on getting my crew to the point where inevitably at some point someone can take over creative services and move on from there. But I will keep a little hush hush. But I will say I have gotten an offer in Anaheim, California.
Yeah.
And if you know what's in Anaheim, California, that may or may not be where I'm heading to. But I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah. Yeah, because you're coming up on this is your last semester.
It sure is.
What does plans for the rest of the semester look like?
The plans for the rest of the semester are going to be desperately fixing anything with my website, resume, anything like that. But also enjoying the last time that I'm going to be in college. And like we were talking earlier, just appreciating the time that I have with the people that are around me, because I do really want to do that. So, yeah, that's why opportunities like this, I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. Why not? Because I'm glad that I can now have the time to be able to do that. So, honestly, taking it easy before the real world gets started.
Yeah. Heck yeah, Tyrell. I appreciate you coming on. Is there anybody you want to shout out, anything you want to plug, anything like that?
Shout out. We talk a lot about KNWT. You can check us out on YouTube and our other socials as well. Jason is in charge of a lot of that and getting that sort of content out. But definitely go check us out there because that's where a lot of our student media stuff goes for anything we've kind of talked about today.
Yeah. All right, cool. I appreciate it, Tyrell. And
absolutely,
I'll definitely have you on some other time, maybe towards the end of the semester.
Of course, Jason.
But I appreciate it, man. Have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.